And welcome back, you guys. Yang Gang. What's happening? It is us, McCoy, Melanated Council Gang. Our special guest today is none other than Erika McLeod from Humanity Forward. Woo!
Hey, you guys. Thanks for having me tonight. This is going to be fun. I'm excited to be here, have a conversation with y'all. It'll be good.
Yes, yes. And I know a lot of people, especially within the Yang Gang, they've been asking us questions as far as what's going to happen, how is the transition of the Yang Gangs going to go. And we're like, well, why not just, there we go. Like, why not just go talk to the horse's mouth in a sense, and let's ask and let's figure out what's going on. And at the same time, understanding what's going on with Humanity Forward, what are some things that are going on, and kind of just give a general sense as far as the next steps moving forward, especially after the election, what's going on. So,
yeah,
Erika, without further ado,
take the floor. Okay, so I don't know how aware everyone is about our big UBI cash relief advocacy initiative that we just put out right after the election. So that is the big next step. We are going after Congress to give people some money directly in their hands. So we're doing the thing that people don't like to talk about. We're doing lobbying.
Lobby.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to take it to Congress. We are going to, find our allies that are in Congress that are for cash relief and hold them to it. Okay. Build relationships there. So that's the big thing. Georgia is also on the table right now, as you know. Mm-hmm. Andrew is heading down to Georgia to support that whole runoff, the two runoffs that are going on. And, we're doing what we can to support that effort. There's a lot of talented organizations already in place down there. So we're asking Yang Gang to support those as much as possible, like Fair Fight, Mi Gente, what are the other ones? Fair Count, GA Dems, the New Georgia Project, like all those organizations have been working to win the state, which I just saw an announcement on Twitter that the Secretary of State announced that we actually came out on top in Georgia for real.
Yes.
Right, it is final. The recount is for real. Yeah. So I'm really, it's all good. We're good. Georgia's good. Now we just got these two races to work on. So in terms of like what the Yang Gang should look forward to, we got a lot of organizing to do. There's a lot of organizing that we need to do to get this message out and to support what we're doing in Congress, with the advocacy effort. So you're going to see a lot of messaging around cash relief right now coming out of Humanity Forward to kind of get people excited about it, so we can fundraise for it, because it's going to be these things cost money. Mm-hmm. So we're hoping that we can get some support. I actually should drop my link for this on here, because I got a link for fundraising efforts. And
please run that link.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna give you all the link. But yeah, so right now we're in a restructure, reorientating from candidate support, getting all of our UBI candidates supported through the elections to this new advocacy program. So we're building up our volunteer network so that we can have the influx of people wanting to come help. There's going to be a lot of campaigns around petitions, letter writing, op-eds, calling, fundraising. Like those are the kinds of things that we're going to need some help with. Yang Gang, I guess they're probably wondering, what's Andrew going to do? We don't know yet. Don't have that answer yet.
Andrew's a wild card.
No, he is. Yeah. Yes, he is. He's got some opportunities. Mm-hmm. you know, we'll see where it all turns out. You'll probably find out the same time I do. I'm just kidding. It's not like that. So yeah, that's pretty much my overview of where we're going. Humanity Forward's pretty excited about this advocacy program. It's good. There's a lot of we're also working on the state legislatures as well, like getting buy-in with that. We're talking to the mayor's guaranteed income. We're talking to ESP. We're talking to like all the people that are involved in this already. We're building a coalition around it. You know, we're gonna grow. We're gonna make it big. We're gonna make this happen.
There we go.
Wouldn't it be crazy? Wouldn't it be crazy? Like a year and a half after Andrew, a year after Andrew suspended his campaign, that we got through Congress cash relief on a monthly basis.
No, that would
be crazy. I mean, come on, we gotta. You cannot achieve what you don't ask for.
It's true,
man.
So that's
Closed mouths don't get fed. That's how I look at it.
That is the truth.
Mm-hmm.
That is the truth. So I'm curious, what do you all think about cash relief? Where are you on the spectrum?
If it's like 1 to 10, 1 being like no cash relief and 10 being cash relief, I'd say I'm like 28.
Show me the bag. Show me the money.
I'm very pro cash relief because, like, you know, I'm really, really just feeling for, you know, families that are, you know, struggling, who, you know, like lost their job due to COVID, who, you know, like they're trying to figure out if they should send their kids to school or not. And like, you know, like how their kids are doing with, you know, like being at home, like, you know, just things will just like, you know, just to mitigate some of that stress, some of that pain will just be like, hey, you know, let's give you some money so you can at least pay your bills, so you can at least put food on the table, so you can at least, you know, like not have to worry about the next day. You know, you could just kind of have your head above water just a bit. Like, it's not perfect. It's not like a, you know, like the end all be all to everyone's problems, but like it will help. Like it will for sure help. And like you have the money in this country for sure.
Yeah. I mean, yes, I completely agree. And our experience of giving out cash relief for COVID and the pandemic, I think we've given out, we're probably going to hit 10 million by the end of the year. I think that's the estimate. And it's just a drop in the bucket. It's like probably 20,000 to 30,000 families that we were able to help. That's like a drop in the bucket. So, you know, we see that what the hurting is in the stories that come in for all the applicants that are still waiting. It's difficult to see. And we're like, we need to take this to the people that actually can give it to everyone that needs it. So
yes,
that's where we are with that. So what about you, Toby?
Yes. Yeah, I got it right there.
Yeah. You got me. That's a little circle. No, yeah, I'm pro. Before the campaign, I don't even know if I had as much of an impression and an opinion on the idea of basic income, or just like in general money as a way to help alleviate stressful circumstances. So like I grew to like it obviously kind of from the campaign, and like the more that I just think about how direct it is and how many like obstacles that people just face trying to apply, getting denied, just like crazy stories. Same thing with like a lot of the rent and like mortgage, like the moratoriums, just like people who just cannot for whatever reason get approved, who really should be. And it's just like, this doesn't make any sense. So it's like, if you have a direct line that kind of cuts through a lot of those rejections, whatever bureaucratic or obsolete requirements that really like some like people who might have their house burned down, who have to like find documentation, or like their house is flooded and they have to find documentation to prove that they made money or something. It's like, that's insanity. So I just feel like having the direct cash relief just cut through a lot of those requirements. If you really need to like get the money back, put higher taxes on the people who make above a certain amount the next year. But I'm very pro just like get the money where it needs to go. The effect will be great. money will go back into these local communities, and like it'll keep the businesses who also are struggling, small businesses struggling, they'll keep them open and operational. So it just makes sense. Like 28 is a very specific number. I can't think of a number. That's that got me beat there. But definitely somewhere past 10, and just kind of going higher. I feel like the more that stuff happens, the more that people see. I mean, there's a reason why it's like 80 something percent, I think, support cash relief, and even just UBI as a concept has broken over 50. I have to look at the numbers again myself, but I just feel like we're definitely I feel like we're very much on the right side of history with this one.
Totally.
Agreed.
I what you were saying reminds me of, it's just awful for people to have to prove how poor they are so they can get help. Like that whole process of proving that you deserve help by having to show how desperate you are is it's such the opposite of what you want people to feel. You want them to feel abundance and prosperity and to believe that they can and have. But when you're constantly looking at what you don't have in order to get what you don't have, it's like, it's backwards. It's just wrong. So
Agreed. And it's funny too, Erika, that you brought that up, because in Michigan, and especially in the city that I live in, we have a rural group that's just got started. And the guy that I know that got it started, he ran for commission. I think he lost. I'm not totally 100% sure again, but I think he lost. But he was asking, like, what are some things that we can do to kind of help the people here in this area? I said, give them money. Like, let's see what we could do as far as get income and get money into the hands of these peoples, because a lot of people are hurting right now. A lot of people, they're needing money and they need it now. And it's like, with COVID rising in our city and in our state in particular, it's like it's only going to get worse. And then on top of the fact, flu season's coming up, so it's just like a compounding problem. And a lot of people are like, you know what, that is a good idea. Let's see what we can do to kind of get it going. So the conversation piece has already been put out there. It's just getting enough people behind it to actually rally and get it pushed through. And I told people who watched the stream, as far as what kind of city, county that I live in a very red city, a very red county. And so for the most part, it may be almost hard to do. But I figure if we had a Republican who was open for term limits and wanting to get, some people out of the state to get out and get fresh blood in, maybe could talk to that person, see what we can do to get cash relief and get him behind it and get it pushed. So that way it flows, because like Toby said, if we want businesses to flourish, they need money. And if we need people to have some money, we need to get it into their hands so they can go and spend it on whatever they want to do and help these businesses, because the only thing it's going to do is recycle right back into the community that it just came from.
Absolutely. That's exactly right. I have two thoughts that came to mind when you were talking. This has to be a bipartisan effort. Like, it just has to be. Like, we need, and it is a bipartisan issue. I mean, it benefits both sides, blue and red, rural places and urban places, because, well, there's people that are in need in both areas. So they might not look the same exactly, but they are definitely in the same, those areas are suffering. And the economic opportunity in rural places of the country. Could you imagine an influx of cash? I'm going to UBI now specifically, of like, you have a city of 30 people. I think they still exist. And maybe there's 25 of them are still adults, and they get like $1,000 a month. That's $25,000 that was there in 1 month that wasn't there before. That's huge. especially in like, there's a lot of poor Black small towns in the South. It would make such a difference there, even if it was just regular cash relief. Not, we're hoping that if we start something that they're not going to want to take it away. That's the idea. You start cash relief and it's on a monthly basis. That's going to be real hard to take away from people. So, and then my other thought was, I had another thought and now it's gone. I hate when that happens.
That's okay. It's a boomerang effect. They'll come back to you.
It'll come back. It'll come back.
But I'm gonna piggyback off what you just said too, Erika. When Michigan was doing this campaign, and the young lady that was running for the 59th district here in Michigan, I brought to her attention, like, hey, well, how do you feel about UBI? Like, what are your thoughts about UBI? And by nature, she's an archaeologist. So she was like, I think that should be a conversation that needs to be had. She said, especially with everything going around with coronavirus, this, that, and the third. She's like, I think it will be a good push. It'll be a good push. And so that again, like I said, the conversation is there, and just trying to get people to buy onto it and understand, like, look, you may not need that $1,200 here and there. You may not need that $500, but let something come up and you wish you had that extra set of money. You got it. And that extra set of money, it comes on a monthly basis. It's not going away. And the people who need it the most, they're going to get it. Like, yes. Woo! Wait a minute. Hold up. From Australia. What's up, Chris?
Yeah, from down under.
Hello, mate.
Hey.
Here from down under. Lovely.
Yeah.
How's the future?
Yeah.
Wait, what time is it there? It's 9 a.m. or something, isn't it?
Man, I love this. Yes.
Yeah. 100% Chris Matthew.
You are on it. I had a round of applause button.
Super dope.
Thank you, Chris. You get a round of applause.
Okay. That's like right in the afternoon there.
Woo, yes. Yes, he's watching on the Twitch channel. Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
No.
I love it. You're international. Do you hear this?
Are you enjoying Canadian hands?
Do you have? Oh, nice. Hi.
Yes.
Thanks for being there, Chris.
Awesome.
Glad to hear it. I hope you're coming next Tuesday.
This is a great crossover. I love it.
Yeah. Sweet. I love it. This is good.
This is awesome. We've been waiting for days like this. Like, yes. You guys, don't mind us. It's been grinding out, but still, please come back, come watch, like, subscribe, all of the good stuff. But Erika, you said you got your point. Did you spill your point yet?
My point was that, like, the things that are happening in our country, there's the four big old dramatic things that we're dealing with are the pandemic, which is causing an economic crisis, on top of race reckoning, while climate change is happening. So all four of these things can be relieved with cash relief. I mean, that's why it's even more important right now, because it's not just the fact that there's people suffering economically. It's all of it. I mean, you can't ask people to stay home if they need to work.
Come on.
And there's no other means to get the money. I think Andrew tweeted that today or yesterday. You really can't ask people to stay home from work and not earn any money and then not give them any money. That doesn't make any sense at all. And if you want our country to survive this, you've got to give the people that spend their money the money.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, UBI would go to everybody. And I know there's a lot of people that have trouble with that. Like, the whole idea of the ultra wealthy getting $1,000 a month seems preposterous under the freedom dividend. But think that, like, that's like so irrelevant compared to how many people are going to be helped that didn't have $1,000 a month, or even, it's just, I don't understand
and there's not even that many like ultra wealthy people anyway.
Right. Right, exactly.
I mean, like in terms of like millions and billionaires, like, I mean, I don't know, I can't really count, but it's like it can't be over like I don't know.
It's like 0.01% or something. It's like some really low number.
Okay, yeah, and we're like worried about that.
Like for the ultra rich.
Yeah.
You know, the what's his name? Why can't I think of his name? Amazon. Jeff Bezos. He's Mr. You know, I have more money than you would, that I could give everyone a dividend for years.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all read this. Tell me what you guys think about this. Because Chris, you on it. Chris, you're on to something, buddy.
Let's oversee how you guys in this going.
Yeah.
Paternalistic welfare systems that we do. There's no incentive for politicians to consider UBI. Oh, because you're already have a lot of incentives that people they're already being taken care of.
Yeah, I see it. I guess that's what I think about with a lot of those Scandinavian countries, like the social safety nets are already so strong, and they're more of a floor in a way. I mean, they're not UBI, but if you're in those countries, and it looks like Australia is similar, it makes sense why it might be hard to push the needle. While when you're in the U.S. and things are more of a flaming mess, even if a lot of people don't want to admit it, you have more room for something that's so drastic and radical. Is like, okay, yeah, you might have to start giving money to everyone, because otherwise I don't know what's going to happen to our country. So it's interesting that even though we have so far to go, like we're coming from a very low place. We don't have a lot of like robust social safety nets. We have so many issues. So the idea of getting UBI is kind of radical, but there's probably much more energy from a grassroots level, just because there's so much more to come up from. Okay. So I can kind of see the point.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I can see the point also. I mean, I guess if you've already, these are the socialist countries. For the most part, they believe in a social safety net. They provide the services. They actually provide the services. I mean, if a country had that, you definitely wouldn't need as much cash. I mean, we have medical concerns. We don't even feel safe in that area, like making sure that we're covered, you know, with our medical bills. A lot of those countries have no worries about that. I mean, it's interesting. It's almost like we have to do a trade-off because we're so heavily capitalistic. It's just we can accept the idea of capitalism that doesn't start at zero faster than we can of giving people Medicare for all.
Yeah.
True.
I guess.
I never thought of that. That's true.
That is so true.
You know,
I always
a dividend.
Right.
Yes.
Like I always saw, like always viewed the freedom dividend as the very first rung of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you're familiar with the pyramid, I can bring it up right now because I can't. It's like the physiological needs like food, water, you know, warmth, rest, shelter. So like, and then the second one, the safety needs, is usually like security, safety, and like I think like health and and property and things like that. So you need food, water, and shelter before you get to the next step, the next rung, which is like safety and health. So
belonging and
like right. So it's like you need money to buy food and water and
the basic
shelter. Yeah, just because like that's literally like the foundation of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's like the first thing that you need to actually, the first step before you can actually go up and eventually be self-actualized.
Yeah.
Yes. Agreed.
We have a lot of people suffering on that bottom floor, like just trying to get the basics, feeling safe. Mm-hmm. How many people are not feeling safe out there? I mean, money provides that sense of safety because you can, dare I say, buy a gun.
well,
it's true though. Security systems cost money. A dog,
right? Locks, having a home that you can lock up safe properly.
Right.
A lot of things that you would consider to be a luxury that like the middle class, the suburban, the gated communities, like, of course, we're just going to get this nice fancy security system, or we're going to get ourselves our little guns or whatever. And that's just not even close to being in the realm of possibilities. If you're really struggling paycheck to paycheck, if you're being rejected by the system, the welfare system and every other system, it's just crazy how much you could consider if you had that money coming in. And it's a real thing that's like, it got lost in the $1,000 isn't going to solve everything, or, there's so many other issues, but people have much more bandwidth to think about the other things they've been putting off. I mean, Andrew would talk about car repairs. I mean, that's like one thing where it's like, yeah, you're basically endangering yourself and like you're basically wearing out your car because you might not be able to pay for repairs, but you can basically extend that to other parts of your life. What are things that you've not been taken care of, even if it's like healthier food, right? Getting checked up. I mean, that of course goes into the Medicare for all, but like there are many, I mean, just like buying, just there's a lot that you could, you go ahead. That's really
stressful. It's stressful to live in America. It's really stressful. Mm-hmm. I feel very blessed that I'm able to work during the pandemic. I'm able to, have support system, and like I'm blessed. I'm totally fortunate. Yeah. But that is not the case for several people. I mean, have you seen the car lines at the food banks?
Yeah, in Dallas, like Texas. Yeah.
What's weird to me about that is they're in car lines. Like, it's not people walking up and trying to get the food and walking back to the, it's people that have vehicles. So they don't have enough money for food, and they have to choose between getting the gas to get in the car to go get the food. Like, I feel stressed just thinking about that.
I know. And just sitting in the lines and like your gas running and like,
it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming, and it's cancel poverty. Do you think we can do it?
I think so. And I'll actually share a true story, like once everything is all said and done, because Manny, we call him President Manny. Yes, Manny, I know you're watching. You're the president as of right now. So how can one convince a person who is against cash relief that this is something our country needs? Again, we got up a very good point that you have people in car lines waiting to get food. That should never happen in the United States.
Does not make sense.
The richest country. You never really hear about it from like other first world countries. Maybe I just haven't been like following up, but I've yet to hear about that.
Yes. In the one thing I look at is, I'll take Germany for an example.
It's embarrassing.
They paid their people to stay home. Think about this now. Their government paid people to stay home. I mean, there's several other countries in that area that did the same thing. They realized or recognized that the threat of the coronavirus was such to a large extent where they paid people to stay home to stay healthy, because they realized it's not going to get cured overnight. Not everybody's going to get healthy, and so in order for us to combat this, we're going to pay you to stay home. That was genius. And of course, the United States, they're laughing about it. Now you fast forward, here we are. Who's laughing at who now? You're the greatest country in the world. You got car lines in Dallas on the highway trying to get food. Get out of here. It makes no sense. It makes zero sense. And it's crazy. The other thing I think about, what I've went through, is the people that lost their job, that's on unemployment and having to wait for the unemployment to kick in, but at the same time, because they've certified for X amount of months, they're out of money for X amount of months because it hasn't came to them. Had UBI be put into place, there would have been no issue. It's like, okay, here you go. You're waiting on your unemployment. Well, you still get like $1,200 to do what you need to do to cover your basic necessities, to make sure you still got lights, your utilities are paid for, you got your rent paid. Everybody's hurting. We get that, but at least you got something until that kicks in. And those are things, real things that are happening that most people overlook. And it's like, come on, you'd be surprised what $1,200 placed in people's hands would do for them. It'll do numbers for them. It will literally cause the stress level to go down. If they know they're going to get it the next month, they can plan accordingly and do what's necessary and reclaim their lives back. And I think most people, they fail to realize that right now people's lives are at stake and they need something tangible to reclaim that back with. And if we don't give them that tangible, i.e. money, to be able to do what they need to do to live, you're going to see a lot more than just Caroline's waiting for food. A whole heck of a lot more. So
somebody just said, I feel like the U.S. is a LM said, I feel like the U.S. is a third world country in first world countries' clothing.
Come on, pumpkin. Get spicy with it.
That was me.
Oh, that's you,
pumpkin. Yeah.
I just looked in there. How do I send messages in the chat? Oh, there it is.
I just went onto YouTube on my phone.
Oh,
and I don't know if there's like a more efficient way.
No, that is the most official way you could do it. Have at
Oh, I got to do it on YouTube. Okay.
Okay.
I'll do it.
So
somebody asked a question about my history and my evolution to becoming part of Humanity Forward.
Yeah, come on, spill it.
Should I share this topic?
Yes.
It's such a strange.
No, you have to.
This
like,
is why.
No, I'm just kidding. It's really not that. I made it sound so much more than it is. No, honestly, for me, it's kind of a crazy story because I can't believe it. Like that my life has come to this place, and I'm really grateful. So I was living in Maryland, working in DC. My background is that where you are, Toby?
I'm in Massachusetts, but I grew up in the DMV. I grew up in Maryland.
Okay. So, DMV. So, I was working as an IT consultant for a small company doing IT support first, gosh, I haven't done it so long. I can't even think of the language. Like I'm the first point of contact for a lot of the calls that would come in. That was my job. I was working for law offices, other nonprofits, political spaces. It was a good living. I'm not going to complain working in DC. I was a single mother. I raised my daughter by myself. And she's grown now. Yes, she just got married.
Wow.
And
Congrats.
So thank you very much. But before, so it's just crazy. Like my life just seemed to align for the events that happen. So I'm at work, I'm listening to something on YouTube, and it mentioned that Elon Musk endorsed Andrew Yang. And I was like, who would Elon Musk endorse? Like, what kind of person would he endorse for president? Especially somebody I've not really heard of. What's going on with that? So I went and checked it out. I went down the rabbit hole, Joe Rogan, Sam Harris, The Breakfast Club. Like, I can't remember like what order everything was that I learned about him, but I could not stop. I was like, okay, that policy's on point. Okay, that policy's on point. This policy's, and the freedom dividend, I was like, how could you have named it any perfectly? Like, I was just so enamored by how different the politics were that he was bringing and how smart and how 21st century. And I was like, what? he wants to modernize the government, maybe even move some of it out of DC to around the country. Like, this is, who talks like this?
Right.
So then I saw him on the, I don't remember, it was the first or second debate. And I was like, oh, that's my guy. I'm sorry, but none of these other people are talking any sense. They're all emotional. They're all talking to our identities, which is, I don't disagree completely with that, but it doesn't bring me a solution. You know what I mean? Like, where's the answer? What is the answer?
Right.
Down with the rich man is not the answer. I need more than that. So, I started buying my gear and stuff, and I was looking at starting to volunteer in Maryland. And while I was doing that, I found the job site, and they were hiring an IT specialist. I was like, I was wondering how much they're paying at the Yang campaign for an IT specialist. I applied. I got a phone call a week later. They're like, do you want to go to Iowa? I was like, Iowa.
Wait a minute. We know what that means. Go for it.
I suppose I will do. I like what this man is doing so much. Would I go to Iowa? Okay. And then I got the call back. Well, we're actually not sending someone to Iowa. We need somebody at headquarters in New York. I was like, okay, that works. So I packed up my stuff. My fiance and I decided that this was an opportunity for me to go do that. He held down the fort at home, and I moved up to New York City, worked in the started at the headquarters, and became the IT manager there.
Nice.
So when the campaign ended, there was a few of us left, kind of shutting everything down and finishing out the needs of the campaign. And, Zach.
Good old Zach.
He came back off the road and was like, so who's left? Who do we got here? And I was recommended to stay on to get things going in terms of operations. And I volunteered to start doing the organizing portion of it because I guess I had some good ideas. I also came from the nonprofit industry and had experience with building out chapters, which is something that we are working on. And yeah, I have to pinch myself. I'm like, how did I go from living in Maryland, in the suburbs of Maryland, to working for Andrew Yang? How did this happen? It's like, wow. And so I remember when Andrew first came into the office, when we converted to Humanity Forward, and we were all working with him on something related to one of our UBI trials or cash relief programs that we're doing. And Politico was in the office, and they took that picture. There's a picture of me sitting next to Andrew, and my family's like, "You're famous." I'm like, no. No, it's not like that.
Yes.
I want to find that picture.
There we go.
Yeah, but it was so that was my trajectory of becoming part of Humanity Forward, and I'm really excited to be there. Having my voice as part of the mix of the staff, I think, is important. I really do bring up Black issues when necessary. And I think that that's important to have that level of diversity on a team that's working on things so important for the country. So we're a very small team, very small. There's like 9 of us, I think, total.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it's a small organization. We're scrappy. Zach said the other day that he's like, we could become the NRA of cash relief or something like that. And I was like, that's an interesting concept.
Okay, Zach, if you're watching, okay.
I get what he means. He wants us to have that level of mobilization.
Okay. It's just
you know what I mean?
thought it was like just to be pretty much like bulletproof. No pun
Very powerful. Yeah, like
Yeah.
really powerful and indestructible. Very powerful and indestructible. Yeah.
I don't know. They be getting here.
Hopefully not what the NRA currently has become, where they like are falling apart. But besides
They
that,
are.
Yeah.
That's true. It's a good point. You are correct. But yeah, so that was my story. It's not that sexy, but it is to me because I'm still grateful every
There you
day
go.
that I get to do a job that I believe in. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I'm doing work that I honestly believe in. Like I forget sometimes, I got to turn off this. I have to figure out where does work stop versus, fighting for the right thing,
It's
activists
good.
don't stop. They don't stop. And I happen to be doing activism and in an employed position. I'm fortunate.
There you go. Awesome. We love you, Erika.
Thank you. I love you all too. I love you guys too. This is fun. I mean, I'm Gen X. I'm older than Andrew. But I do feel like we relate on like that level. I appreciate his storytelling because I feel like I can relate on that level, like that we're from that generation. We're kind of like that silent, but we kept our heads down and kept working, but we were also fighting against the machine at the same time. That's kind of our attitude in Gen X. Baby boomers are too loud. The millennials are too loud. We just got to keep working here. No, I'm just kidding. So anyway, I like telling my story because it reconnects me to why I'm here. It's fun to tell that story.
Yes.
I actually was watching a video partway through just before the stream. It was you and I think Humanity Forward Arizona called what's it called? Step Forward, I think was their channel.
I did that a while ago.
Yeah, that was like a while back, but I was just watching it again and I was watching it and I was like, this is such an interesting origin story. Coming from IT and stuff, which I mean that sounds more like what you do, Al, versus like I do software engineering. I'm not an IT person. Like unfortunately sometimes people throw IT things at you. They assume this is electrical. You're gonna be
you touch your computer.
Yeah.
You make things on computers.
The flexibility of it is definitely impressive in general, just because you have to sometimes save everything or debug whatever and help troubleshoot. So it's really cool to kind of go from there to like the space you're in, bringing some of the same analytical skills and like very hands-on and very flexible and all that stuff.
Yeah, one of the things that's exciting for me is that I'm building the infrastructure for us to handle a high capacity organizing operation. Like that's what I'm really trying to make happen. On a dime right now while we're fundraising. Hopefully that'll change down the road. Oh, I need to get my link in there. I got to figure out how to get on YouTube and put my link in there. But yeah, like I my education, this is such a funny story too. I went to school for art education. So I have an art background.
Okay.
And when I graduated from college, I moved straight to Baltimore. And I was like, wow, I'm not ready for this. I'm so not ready for Baltimore City. I was telling Ronald before we came on the air that I grew up in a very rural space. Red County, New Jersey. There is, it's very Red County farmland. Very few people that look like me are here. I was probably one of 13 kids in my whole high school. So I had a rude awakening when I went to college. I was like, oh, the world is very different than where I grew up. Very different. So I had that and graduated from college, went down to Baltimore, got furtherly rudely awakened to the realities on the ground, and then decided I was going to do something else for a while. I started out as a receptionist in 1994, a receptionist at a nonprofit making like $19,000 a year. And I was so sick of calling the IT people because they were never on time and they took forever. They didn't know what they were. I said, forget it. I'm going to learn how to do this myself.
Okay.
So I took over all the IT for an organization called the Appraisal Foundation. And yeah, I just grew from there. I went back to school, did a couple things, and was doing IT for 20 years before I came up here to work for Andrew. So that's the full story. That's the full story.
Where did you go to college?
I went to Millersville University in Pennsylvania. And
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's not too far from Philly, far enough.
We get it.
It was far enough where you had to like plan to go to Philly. You can't just
right, exactly. And I couldn't have a car on campus the first year. That was like, but that's where I don't know. I wasn't really I ended up at Millersville instead of planned to go there. I was like one of those young people. I was like, I don't know what I want to do. I have no idea what I want to do. I don't know what I'm good at. I like doing art. How do you make that into a living? I didn't know what to do with it. My parents were kind of like, what are you going to do? Like, you need to figure something out. So I went to school for teaching.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
Like teaching art?
Yeah. To be an art teacher. I don't have any of my artwork here. I'd show you something, but I haven't done it for years. Should start it up again. But I'm so off topic now. I've gone into my life craziness. Who cares about that? That's boring. Let's talk about something exciting.
It's okay. Because there's another question by Chris he wanted us to kind of talk about. He said, what is the panel's thoughts on the idea of reparations to the ADOS community? So,
who wants to kick that off?
Hold on. Bam. There we go. That one.
Okay.
So, who wants to kick it off first?
I'll kick it off. I mean, these are just my thoughts. I don't speak for the whole MCOY, but I'm for reparations. I just know that it will be quite difficult to implement because of just like how far away we are from like the lineage of like original slaves. However, if there's like a way to implement reparations due to like Jim Crow laws and like segregation and things like that, something that's a little bit more recent, then I think that would definitely be it. That'll be like more accurate. I don't know how exactly it'll go about. Like, I think it should go towards like African Americans, like those who are, whose like ancestors were enslaved in this country, or like who were really, impacted by like these things in this country. Like, for example, like my parents are Jamaican, so like I wouldn't want to really benefit from that, but I know that even that would be like difficult to like navigate, because there's some people who are like, oh, my mom's American and my dad is Jamaican, but like so I don't know how it would be implemented exactly, but I am for it, because like Black people in this country have been just like knocked way back several times over and over and over again throughout history, and even today, to the point it's like that's why we have like certain very impoverished zip codes and like just certain like just impoverished areas, and like these crime-ridden areas that are like overly policed, and then they go to jail, get a felony, come out, and they can't find a job, and it's like it's just a sad, terrible, endless cycle.
Yes.
It's a topic that my heart is like, it should happen. I just don't know how practical it is to implement. Like that, my practical, rational mind wants to say, how do you, like what you were saying, Elle, how do you how do you implement it? I mean, if it was like 50 years after, I don't even know where you would start that. Now that I'm about to say that, I was like, 50 years after what?
Like,
which incident would be most appropriate? Juneteenth?
yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
where do you start? Where do you
Mhm.
start? But I think in a moral standpoint, it makes sense. I don't understand how people don't equate like the destitute poverty that are in the zip codes, as you said, it doesn't go back. How do they not see that it goes back to the beginning, the endings of slavery? Like, how do you, when I found out,
learning too, you know, like that shit.
right. And then if you, they're saying something in the chat that seems interesting. And then when I get really burned up, when I think about that they gave reparations to the slave owners. I was like, what? I don't understand.
Yeah, I've heard that.
I was like, that's really
It's
another slap in the face.
Yeah.
Like I know for a fact that my ancestors came from slavery. Like my great grandmother was born a slave, and she was a small child when they left some areas of North Carolina. So I mean, I guess I would be a beneficiary of it.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I don't know. I don't have to be that, but because my family came out of it in the end in a different place than a lot of other people are in. So how do I don't feel comfortable with that. You know what I'm saying?
I feel you.
But I do. But then again, I could just take this, just like UBI. I could take that money and give it to someone else, or and double it up for someone else. So
I feel you.
My heart is in it. I just have this. I'm afraid to believe it could happen.
Mm-hmm.
I hear you. Toby, you want to go? You want me to go?
I can say some stuff. No, because I was thinking and playing off of what both of you said, Elle and Erika, like, I also wouldn't be eligible. Like, the way that, with ADOS, the American descendants of slaves, because my parents are both Nigerian. So I also wouldn't, have that lineage back to slavery. But I think it's just like, there's too much that's happened to like just kind of let go. And it's always been like so incremental where it's like the government only do something when their hands are like twisted and like forced. Like I think Martin Luther King like showed up with JFK at the White House, but like before that, JFK was not really about to give civil rights to Black people. I think Eisenhower signed a bill, but he wasn't really trying to touch civil rights. Basically, no one was trying to touch this issue. And that's just how it's always been. People have been trying to get away with doing the very least to kind of right the wrongs that have happened. And of course, like said, after the Civil War, reparations were given to slave owners, which is just like, okay, obviously reparations can be done. You just have to give a crap about giving it to the right people. Now things have gone so far where people say, well, no one was a slave. No Black person alive today was a slave. No white person alive today was a slave owner. And that misses the point so much, where it's about what are the lasting effects since 1865 when the Civil War ended. After 1964, that whole between the Civil War and the Civil Rights Movement, there was so much damage done there. After the Civil Rights Movement, you have like redlining and all these other policies that governments and banks and other private institutions did, which completely just destroyed certain neighborhoods. I mean, highways were built, segregated neighborhoods. I remember in Baltimore, there was a class I took in college that kind of explained some of like why poverty and like certain race relations, even like gender discrimination, different things were happening in the city, and it happened in a lot of other cities. And these things happened, and like you have to like really dig deep and say we need to have some retribution for this. And I'm not even sure. And the crazy thing, kind of like UBI, it's a huge policy that like kind of scarily large compared to other policies and recurring. but it doesn't even fix like a lot of these problems. It'll help in so many ways, and obviously we're pro UBI, but it's like that's the floor and that's where the work starts. Reparations similarly doesn't even completely fix and solve some of these issues, but like almost like what has to happen, you kind of come up with. I think someone said, Chris Matthews, you right? Marianne Williams talked about the 40 acres. 40 acres and a mule. Just for the information for those who don't know, that was supposed to be the amount that Black Americans were guaranteed. The freed slaves were guaranteed. It would be 40 acres of land and a mule. And so that was never done. So here we are, like 160 years later. And
more than.
You said more than that?
Yeah, it's more than 100 years.
I said
160. 160 is what Toby said.
Oh, okay. I thought you said 100 years.
I said technically that might be a little, but
my bad.
It's all good.
That's all good.
I was like Toby's learning fast.
No, it was 100 years that passed between those two big events, 1865, 64. So it's kind of like the massive amount of time that's passed, and just like 160 years later, the 40 acres and the mule never got manifested. And then today, as we speak, I mean, it's like, what can you really do to sort of undo some of these different damages? So what Marianne Williams had said was given an amount, I guess that was equivalent to what 40 acres and the mule was. And so she was kind of saying, commit some billions of dollars and pay that out to everyone. And she said that on the debate stage, which was very bold. And I mean, probably for starting that, not starting, but just putting that out there in the atmosphere. And it's just like, and I know some universities like Georgetown basically were like, oh yeah, by the way, we built our school with slaves. So what they did was they were gonna like guarantee scholarships to some people. So again, I think they're gonna try to guarantee scholarships to certain certain communities that had been, they sort of did the research of where communities were sourced, where the slaves were sourced from, and they were going to try to reach back out and give scholarships, which is still kind of like self-serving a little bit, because I mean, free scholarships, that's great, so I won't talk down on that, but then it's like, sure, now you're basically giving them an education to go to your school.
Right.
So I mean, North Carolina, I think, did something where they were going to give some kind of retribution. The reparations was going to be towards, I think, education and investing in certain communities. It was some town in North Carolina. This was a few months ago. Or, I mean, time has passed so much, but it was sometime during the pandemic when the announcement happened. So there's a lot of different ideas of what should reparations be. How do you effectively do it? How do you kind of get past because the other problem too is that not everyone's even pro reparations within the Black community. And there's a lot of hot debate about what it should look like. I know that Ta-Nehisi Coates, I think is his name, he had a Congress, like a hearing on reparations, and he wrote the book called A Case for Reparations. So like that was a huge thing. That happened like last year. But then there was a Black guy who I think is like more of a Black conservative, Black libertarian, who actually was also in Congress during those hearings, giving an opposing view about why reparations should not happen. And so it's like 13% of the country can't even get on one page on what to do with reparations. And then you have to like somehow convince enough people, like white people, to be very blunt, that reparations is the right thing, and that you're not trying to like, because the way oftentimes that it gets seen is like, oh, I didn't own the slaves. You know, my family didn't even exist in that time. My family's from Ireland, Germany, whatever. So they kind of like, it becomes a thing of, why are you punishing me? Or how do you pay for this? Are you trying to tax all the white people and give it to, it just ends up being a very explosive type of thing. And it's the right thing to pursue, but it's like a lot of conversations that have to happen, and a lot of breaking down of what actually is reparations supposed to look like, you know, and linking a lot of these really bad policies from slavery to the lack of civil rights, to all the things that happened after the civil rights that, you know, still happen, and then like issues in the medical system. There's just so many things where the issues have not gone away, and you have to like really make that case that if something isn't done drastic, these things are going to get worse, and it's really bad for the country overall. If these issues continue to exist. I mean, we saw what happened with the George Floyd protests too. So that's another big one, is that like when one community suffers, the whole country will feel it. But that's really all I gotta say for now on that.
Yeah, agree.
That's a lot to say. Thank you.
Yeah, and Erika, I'm kind of like with you. Like, I get the concept of it, and I know that my great grandparents, of course, yes, they had to be slaves because the farm that they came from, ironically, if I can remember correctly, was from the slave owner that they came from, and so that's down in Stuttgart, Arkansas. Just to kind of give people context, and so when they came up, like they literally sold, either they sold it or they gave it to like somebody in the family just to kind of keep it so it stays in there.
Right.
But it was just one of those things where it's like, yes, they were descendants of slaves, and yes, they had their own place and everything else. Like my grandmother can point it out to you if we were to go down there. But it's like because they came up to Michigan and they died peacefully and whatnot. I got a chance to meet them. For me, it's kind of like I get it, and it's like I don't know. The one thing that kind of helps me out was having these conversations, and the one person that kind of made it plain as day was Jen Perlman when she was running for Congress down in Florida. And the thought about one way to implement it was to set it up as a trust fund and place it in that community that that needed it. And so rather than have a big bank hold it, like set it up as a trust fund, and whoever needed it to say open up a business, to buy a house, buy a car, whatever the case may be, that they will go to that community, the local trust holder, however you want to put it. They will go there and say, hey, I want to borrow X amount of money. Interest rate could have been like 1% or something, and then rather go to the big corporations. When they paid that money back, it actually came back into the community, so it never left. It just helps build the community up. And that was probably like the one implementation that I thought about that would actually work, that actually makes sense. It's like it's not going anywhere. It stays there in the community, and it helps the overall community to grow, especially in the areas of housing, in the areas of gaining capital, to be able to start a business, to be able to do all these things, to leave a legacy, to build up generational wealth that can be transferred to generations. And I was like, that's smart. Like I could get behind that.
Yeah.
And it will work, And again, like what Toby said, with all these politicians not wanting to face the elephant in the room and actually do the right thing, it's going to hold that process up, and it's still going to be up in limbo until somebody says, we need to get this done. We need to get this done now, because the greatest amount of people that have suffered the most have yet to get reconciled, and yet we're the ones that's holding that reconciliation back. So
yeah.
So Chris, hopefully the panel has answered your question, because again, it's one of those topics where it's like we talk about it, but at the same time, it's really, I wouldn't know if it's sticky. It's just a lot of people, they're just on opposite poles. They're on opposite ends.
There's a lot of emotional things that go on inside of me when I'm even talking about it. Like there's a bit of guilt. I feel a little guilty talking about it. I feel outraged. Like how could anyone think this isn't the right thing to do? I feel discounted. There's like so many different things because of emotions that come up, just because, first of all, I have no control over if it's going to happen or not. Like I literally have no control over whether that's going to happen or not.
Right.
And we're dependent on a society that will allow it. Do you know what I mean? Like I don't like that feeling. It makes me feel very dependent on, like I'm still on, like there's this plantation mentality of some kind, and that's not really how I feel, but it goes through my mind, if you will.
Yeah.
Like I'm waiting for the master to give me something, and I don't like that feeling. I struggle with that one, but at the same time I'm owed it, so it's like there's no singularity there. There's not like some singular answer for me, at least.
I hear you. I mean, because even in some other spaces we've had conversations, and I told people like it's just one of those things for me where it's like I get it, but at the same time it's like, again, I feel some type of way about it. I'm gonna put it out there. I feel some type of way about it. Even talking about it now, like I still feel some type of way about it. It's like, no, it's not good, and no, it's not bad. It's just where I'm at now in my life is like, yeah, it would help, but even if I don't get it, I really don't care. So it's like, I don't know. It's just one of those topics where it's like, ugh. It's like, yes, we have to have it. Yes, we have to rip off the Band-Aid and clean out all the bad stuff to let it heal properly. But even still, it's just.
Is it? Will it?
I mean, Manny said it was so good. Like, there's so many issues with racial division and hostilities, and with the polarization of the country. It's like polarizing. Like, I remember one great. I mean, it's not great, but it just showcased how badly we like live in like so many different universes. There was like some town in Ohio, I think, that was like having this Black Lives Matter protest, and like a bunch of people in the town got really fearful because this is a very country, rural, like small town type place, and so there was confrontation. Thankfully, no one like hit anyone, no one fired any shots off, but like a lot of the people in the town, this like white town, they were getting ready for a confrontation, and a bunch of like Black Lives Matter organizers from maybe Cleveland or Cincinnati were coming to this town. And so like this just became a flashpoint. This was back in like June or July. This became a flashpoint where it was like a lot of people were like, look at this backwards town, while a lot of like more of the either people from the town or like people in similar towns across the country were like, look at these like ignorant protesters like come into a town that has nothing to do with any of this. And so it just was like a lose-lose where like we had this like there's just so much division and things happen. People have the preconception of what, you know, like a lot of people just think Black Lives Matter is all like this Marxist, you know, we already know people have their opinions on how they are. Then like, it's just very hard for people to actually talk to each other from these kind of different sides. Like I know there was one guy, I'm trying to remember his name. He actually supported UBI. He's like a Black Lives Matter organizer in New York City. I think his name was something Newsom, but he basically in 2017 went to speak to this Trump rally, and like he got up on the stage saying like, I'm a Black Lives Matter organizer, and like all the people were booing. You saw, you know exactly. Okay, yeah. They booed him, and then they were like, my name is this, and I'm a patriot, I'm an American, and then they started cheering. So it's like, if you're not a speak language, it's like if you're not.
It feels so simple.
So simple. And then he talked about his stuff, and I mean, they listened, they kind of said, we respect that you came and talked to us. So like, that's kind of part of the first step, and it's not popular because a lot of people aren't necessarily trying to speak, especially a lot of people when it comes to Black Lives Matter, they're like, you know, this is not something to debate. And it's not something to debate, but there are very clearly different ideas of what that phrase means, what the organization means, of what policing in America, what's the state of it. And like, that's like one flashpoint. And so because of these racial divisions are just here, and it's so hard for people to kind of get past the preconception of what people on the other side, quote unquote, believe, it just makes it almost impossible to talk about any of these types of things, which is why it was such a, Hawk Newsom. Yeah. And like, yes, very, very good. I don't remember if he formally endorsed Yang, but I think he probably mentioned him before. And definitely was pro UBI when the UBI march happened last year. He was there. So I think that was, and it's actually not completely surprised, given that he went to talk to a Trump rally about Black Lives Matter. and Yang is like very kind of open to talking with any audience. That's kind of like a similar route that you kind of have to take. Like, it's not comfortable. I mean, the uncomfortable conversations with the Black man that Emmanuel I think was doing, like that's I mean, that I saw some of those questions. One of the most recent ones was a roundtable with police officers in some town no one ever heard of. And he was like, I'm doing this because no one knew what Kenosha was until just a few months ago. And so preventive measures are more effective than post, after the fact. So I think more things like that would have to happen, where you would have to almost directly ask point blank, what's your opinion on reparations, and make that a regular conversation in circles where you wouldn't expect people to agree with it, and hopefully get a real conversation out of it that's beyond just these like, let's dunk on whoever. And just, yeah.
So it's interesting. I'm back home in my hometown, and I've reconnected somewhat with my friends that lived here or near here. And I have never had that conversation about ADOS or reparations or anything with any of my white friends. I'm wondering, like, are they even aware? Like I'm questioning the level of awareness of it. Like,
yes.
It's, some people will be like, why are we even talking about this? Like you said earlier, slavery's over. It's been over. Look how successful you are, your family, la, 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 la. I just wonder. I'm going to ask them tomorrow. I'll let you know what happens.
That's okay. And again, Chris, we hope that we answered your question.
Yeah.
Because again, it is one of those topics where, yes, it's something that we have to have on a regular basis, but at the same time, because of the climate that's here now, it's like it makes it. I don't want to say it makes it hard, but it makes it very difficult to have people to sit down and have these conversations and be open and honest about what's going on and what's happening, and let's find some practical solutions to get it done and get it implemented, and basically do what's necessary to heal this country. And again, Manny, he said it best. We got to come together somehow, some way. We have to come together, and we have to push it and improve not just the lives for Black Americans, not just the lives for white Americans, not just the lives for Mexican Americans, but for all Americans, really. Because in one way, shape, or form, everybody is suffering right now. Everybody's suffering right now. And again, bring the conversation all the way back over to UBI, a freedom dividend. It'll probably be quicker and easier to pass a UBI and get that going and see how that works. And then I think several people have suggested this too, that once we get UBI in place, then we can open up that conversation more. It's like, okay, we got UBI done. It's working now. Let's have that conversation again about reparations. Let's see what we can do to go ahead and get that going, and call it quits from there. So those are our thoughts. Let's see.
Very interesting.
Yes.
One thing I didn't say about reparations. I also feel a little bit of complexity because of my father's side of the family's heritage. I don't really know what his history is. Like, it's like we don't really know like how much of his roots are of African American descent of slaves. Like I don't even know. He's kind of a mixed bag there. So
I hear you.
Like there's just so much complexity around the issue, but yeah, and it doesn't help us move forward on our day to day. That's my thing. I'm like, it's not going to be a change today for sure. So how much energy? I don't know. I feel like that's the wrong thing to say, though.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Put it on the table.
Right.
I told people like this too. On my father's side of the family, Like I can literally trace back my genealogy to Geronimo. Can trace him back. And if people don't know who that is, Geronimo was one of the most famous Apaches in all time. Like I could trace that back to him through my grandfather on my father's side. And people kind of like, really? So are you taking advantage of going to college for free? Like I could, but at the same time, like because of the amount of time and energy I will have to put in and get proof and whatnot. Like, heck, there's even pictures that my father has of my grandfather that I don't even know he even has anymore. So it's like it's like that, things like that. And and it's a bunch, it's a lot. And it's like, from there, and then of course, from where I got my last name from, originally it wasn't that, because from what my cousin has said, there were 7 brothers that were on this plantation. One of them escaped. He came back, grabbed the rest of his brothers, and what they did was they all changed their last name into some variation of the former slave owner. So if any one of them got caught, they couldn't trace it back to the other. And so that was genius, very much genius. And so even then, it's like, now how do we discover that one out and talk about that in that aspect? Again, don't know.
Yeah.
Don't know.
That's fascinating.
That sounds like made for movie, like TV movie type stuff.
I mean, and the crazy thing about it is like my cousin in California, she's been doing a bunch of research about it, and a lot of other people that has the similar spelling of my last name, but it's slightly off just by a little bit. They've all have said the same thing, like this is how we got our last name from, and and so they started connecting the pieces of the puzzle together. One of my cousins that I was talking to, he said it's funny because I was playing basketball, and one of the teams we went up against, they were all black. He said, but there was one guy in particular, he looked just like me, like clear as day. And both teams looked at the two that were playing and were like, are y'all related? Because y'all look eerily the same. And he's like, well, what do you guys know about the last name of Marzell? And a lot of people are like, coincidentally, that might be your cousin. Just due to the fact the spelling of the last name is so different, he very well could be your cousin. All we got to do is see where he can trace it back. And if he can trace it back to one of those slave brothers that were free, yeah, that's your cousin for real. So it's like, wow. Yeah.
That is so
That's
crazy.
It is. Sheesh.
And there must be like so many stories like this that you never get like that is so like I'd watch the hell out of that movie.
Me too.
Like it could be like a series, like everybody else's last name, what they're doing, what their life is like.
Yeah. And it's funny because like Alanis Morissette, coincidentally, you look at her last name, like, okay, Morissette, but when you think about it, like, well, wait a minute, his name is Marzette, and it's almost spelled the same way, and we're like, could it be possible that we're actually related? And then there's black folks with the name of Morissette, and like, yeah, very much possible because of what happened. And it's like, wow, like
broken lineage.
Yes. It opens up a world that we could go through day in and day out and still not really fully come to grips of this is what happened. So, that's a lot.
Yeah, it just made me think about how when I got my 23andMe done.
How did that
go? Well, I'm Nigerian, 60% Nigerian. There's some Ashkenazi Jew. There's some Scottish.
Mm-hmm.
My last name, I guess that's how that came about. So, but I was really moved to find out that I had an actual connection to some real land in Africa. Like that meant something to me.
Wow.
Like I was like, I told my daughter, "You're Nigerian. How does that feel?" Like, it's pretty funny. Toby, you're Nigerian, right?
Yeah.
How does that feel? We're related somehow, somewhere. No. I don't know. That's cool, right?
I've always been sketchy about it. I kid you not. I've always been sketchy about it. My wife, she's like, "We should do 23andMe. We should do 23andMe." Like, I don't know. Like, I feel real sketchy about it. But hearing your testimony about it now, I'm kind of like, man. Like, babe, listen, if you want to do this 23andMe, I'll pay the money for it. Let's get it done, and let's just see what comes out. It's like,
yeah, maybe you should do Ancestry.com, Rabbits. I think they're better at I don't know.
Well,
lineage, and like you can actually connect with like people who've also done Ancestry.com.
And that's where I originally found it from my lineage from Geronimo. I found it on Ancestry.com, like for free. And it was like, really? And it showed, it started off with him, and then it went, and then it branched off, and then it went some more, and then I found my grandfather, and then I saw my dad's name, and then I saw my brother and my name coming up from my dad. And I'm like, wait a minute now, like, is this for real? Like, I can literally trace that back and sort through. And I showed my brother. He said, But I'm like, but then again, it makes sense because my mom, she's always told me and my brother when we were growing up that we were direct descendants from Geronimo, and that my grandfather was pretty much that key to that linkage. And she was like, he always said that you guys were descendants of Geronimo on his side. And he's like, he has pictures of his grandmother that was within that same era and that same tribe that's related to Geronimo. So it's like, yeah, it's very possible. I'm like, wow.
That's fascinating.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
So I guess I got sold into doing 23andMe. So I don't know.
I will
see what happens.
I will let y'all know.
See what happens. Yeah, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still sketchy about it. I'll do it.
So, someone asked if I had any disagreements with Andrew.
Yes, I saw that.
And I'm really racking my brain right now trying to figure out, do I disagree on anything? And like, let's throw out some policies and see.
Oh boy,
there's so many. Let's see. Let me look up the old policy site. It's still there.
Are you serious?
It's interesting.
Wow.
Yeah, the policy site is archived. He actually has name dropped a few policies sometimes. I feel like as a low key, like, I was right.
Yeah, like democracy dollars or like, humanity.
I remember when we switched this from being a live site to more of a static, like, I mean, it was down for a while and people were hitting us up like, you took the policies down. We need the policies back. It was pretty encouraging to know that people care that much.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I look at it like this. A lot of the policies that he had, it made sense. It made sense. And especially since he was the only one that actually had a solution to the problems that we're facing that actually made sense. Is like, dude, why not? Why not implement it? Why not put it into play now? And people are like, nah, we don't want to. Okay, here's 2020, we're in November, and now everybody's like, well, Yang said this and he said that, and the way how everything is going, he actually might have been right. Like, no duh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I digress.
Yeah, we were all in that we're not happy that a pandemic exposed all this, but like, yeah, our boy kind of was right. And actually, one friend said something similar to me that it was just someone, I don't really know exactly who she supported, but we talked about, politics stuff before. She's from New Hampshire. She's Black. There's just some very interesting conversations that I've had with her. And at some point we were hanging out over the summer, and she was saying like, yeah, your guy was basically right about everything. And like, I was like, that just warmed my heart so much. But it's like, again, the worst of situations, but it's kind of like, okay, if we're going to like really fix these things, then let's try to like get done stuff that we can. I mean, this whole cash relief effort is amazing. Just like the UBI trials and just cash relief. I mean, it's like, to kind of be technical, it's like you're prototyping right now. We're trying to like, create small scale solutions and proving that it works before going big, which is actually what a lot of people would say is what Yang should have done. It's like, oh, why go for the presidency? Why not start small and mayor level and then go bigger? And his thing, of course, was you don't have time. So now that he's kind of gone big, he didn't make it, but he's gotten a lot more support because clearly the pandemic and other factors are showing that we need to go big. We can actually go small as a way to sort of micro target areas. So I think that's really great that these UBI trials are happening, that the Prop 24 with the data privacy that passed. I mean, there's a lot of things where these policies are, you can kind of like attach ourselves, not just like attach ourselves to causes, but amplify causes happening. There's a lot of things that Yang advocated for that, we are seeing some kind of progress for. I mean, another big one, I didn't get to mention it earlier, but was the Oregon. And we'll definitely have an episode about drug decriminalization. And obviously Yang was the only one really who pushed that in the Democratic Party on the national level. So I think that it's just going to be great to see a lot of these things that Yang was kind of bold enough to come out for with policies are going to be pushed by a lot of states. And that's just going to give more credence to the movement. Yeah, because it's not just UBI, even though that's a huge one. There's like so many things.
There's so many things. I'm just going over the website and looking at all the policies, and I'm like, man, I'm really struggling to find something I don't agree with. Maybe getting rid of the penny, just because I'm not invested too much in that one, but it makes sense.
One thing that I couldn't agree with Yang on was he didn't want to get rid of the Electoral College. I want to get rid of that. Like, because like his logic was like, you would just go to like these really big cities and talk to the people there, but that's kind of what was happening, especially during the pandemic, which is understandably so. You can't just go everywhere, but like, what states are going to go blue, what states are going to go red for the most part. So you pretty much just are going to like the big electoral like swing states anyway.
Yeah, the swing. Yeah.
It's sort of the same concept, but at least with this, it's like, you have to literally appeal to every single person with every single individual vote. And it feels like, your vote actually matters.
Come on.
And also, I'm just mad at Florida too. I feel like Florida should just be split in half. Like there should be a South Florida and a North Florida.
Okay, and I feel your sentiments. I do. At
least Michigan was blue, though. Okay.
Hey, Michigan came a long way. Michigan. I'm not gonna get on Michigan. Okay, I have some reserves towards Michigan. I do. I have a bunch of reserves. Don't get me started. I digress. Oh.
It's funny because I guess I understand like why that needs to go away because of it should be one person, one vote, and this electoral college thing seems to separate us from that.
Yeah,
I do get that, but we are the United States of America and not the United People of America.
But the people make the country.
But that's I agree with you, but we are not the United People. It's literally a state-driven country.
Federalism.
But
Oh man.
My brother and I debate about this all the time.
Okay.
And I'm not against the idea of switching it to something else, but I understand the logic of where we are right now. It's logical to have, it brings government more local to you. Like the idea was supposed to be that your state is more powerful to you than the government. It was supposed to be that way.
Right.
It's never been that way though. I don't think. Well, some states it is.
I do think that if it was one person, one vote, it would definitely drive like more people to go out and vote, and definitely like vote locally too. So like,
yes,
especially like the down ballot candidates, like for like the big elections, it would definitely drive more people to like go out and vote, because it's like it could just end up being just like one person. Like there might be like that one day where it's like you tally up all, what is it, like 16 million, 160 million people who voted, I think.
Yeah.
Like maybe 150 million. And, like you could just be like that one vote, but it's like, oh, it comes down to like the one vote in like Georgia.
Right. Right.
The one vote in the entire United
States. I've never lived in a state where it mattered. It's always been blue, Maryland or New Jersey. It's never been
it really sucks. So like it makes you like, it's like, who the hell can I trust now? At least the county is the most blue county. Like,
there you go.
Yeah, 75% voted for Biden.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty big.
Just know, if you need to get away, we got some land here in Michigan.
Are all three of you sort of anti-electoral college?
I side with L, and the reason why I say that is because I'll put this out there with y'all. Michigan, some elections has pissed me off. When it came to elections, they did. Like the 2016 election, when I saw Michigan went to Trump, I flipped. Mind you, I was living in Colorado at the time. I flipped. I said, why, Michigan? Why? Why? Out of all people, why go to Trump? Why? And it crushed me because they were still dealing with the water crisis in Flint, who the governor at the time was a Republican. He didn't do anything. And it's like, haven't you guys not learned from the mistakes that keeps going on that no, it's not going to work. It's not. And like I said, it hurt.
Yeah.
So this time around, I'm like, okay, Michigan, let's go blue. Like the one team in Michigan that we all know of. Let's go blue. and let's redeem ourselves a little bit. You got a Democratic governor. She's been kicking butt and saving y'all's lives. Let's go blue. Come on. When it went red, I'm like, L, I'm ready to get a boat. I'm ready to go. Because again, I'm leaving. I don't care. I will drive my 18 hours back to Colorado where it's blue. It's been blue. I will go back. I will not bat an eye. But man, and I get where she's coming from, because a lot of people here in Michigan, they do vote and they do want to go vote, but they're like, it doesn't matter if I go vote or not, because half the knuckleheads in the state, they're not going to listen to what I have to say as it is anyways. And especially here in Three Rivers, where it's really rural, they're like, my vote's not going to count. Like it is, you just have to make it count. You have to do something to make change, because if not, you're still going to have the same crappy schools with the same crappy superintendent who really doesn't care if your kids are going to pass or not. And you can have the best of the best of the best, but if there's a program that's not going to help your child pass and whatnot, then what you're going to do? If you got your cousin who's been locked up for like 10 years on a trumped up drug charge, knowing that he could have got maybe 3 to 5. He gets out, he can't find a job because he had no skills. I'm like, come on, let's bring it home. And it's like, well, yeah, I see you, but no. I'm like, come on now. Like, we got to do better. We got to do better. And what hurt, I was on the training session during the campaign for Amy East, and they broke down the numbers for the 2016 election. Okay. And they did it by counties. And so we know Detroit, I think it's like in Wayne County and whatnot. And so, of course, Wayne County went to Hillary, but only went to Hillary by only like a couple thousand votes. Only by like a small amount. And I think about the city of Detroit, knowing that Detroit, the population probably at the time was pretty high. And so I'm like, you mean to tell me that out of all the votes that got casted, that she barely won Detroit by, let's say, 20,000 votes? Barely. That was a shocker to me, because it's like Detroit already got smacked around during the recession. A lot of the jobs left, and it never fully recovered. It never did. And if anything, they lost a lot more than what they gained. And with this recession and with this pandemic that then smacked them around again, it just shows that the people there, they've already given up. They've already lost hope, and they already know that it doesn't matter if I go out and vote, if I do this or if I do that, that my voice is not going to get heard. My voice is going to get washed out in the millions and millions of dollars that gets pumped in through ads and whatnot. That is not going to compel me to go out. It's going to do the reverse. And so I'm like, I feel that. And I got mad, which is why I went so hard during her campaign to make sure she got in and did everything I possibly could, because I knew and realized that if we could show it could be done and use her as a model to everywhere else in Michigan, that's holding on by a thread. Let's do it. Let's see what we can do to make it work. Let's see what we can do to showcase, like, you can do it. You just have to want it bad enough. And if you don't want it bad enough, at least do it for your kids, for your grandkids, for the next generation that's coming up behind you. Because if not, they're not going to have a chance. And they're going to look at you and hold you accountable for something that you could have done to prevent that.
That's the tweet.
That's my rant. I'm done rant.
Yeah.
In chat, thank you for the questions, because you guys are driving this conversation, whether you guys believe it or not. You guys are driving the conversation.
For sure, yeah.
Erika?
I'm looking at the questions here.
Mrs.
I'm gonna. Mr. Yang Gang is asking top few things Yang 2024 campaign would have to do different. Deep organizing. We were shallowly organized in my opinion. We were only in the early state, maybe we didn't have a broad enough ground game. We weren't in Iowa early enough, in my opinion. And I also, this is just my observation from, I didn't start working for the campaign until November. So this was my observations before I even joined the campaign as an employee. I just thought we needed more ground game. I think we also need to improve Yang Gang's understanding of what organizing actually is. Like there's 3 things. Where's my book? Everybody.
Bro.
No shortcuts. Organizing for power.
Okay.
We definitely need to learn how to what that means. And then my other book is Where Do We Go From Here? I just started this one.
Oh, I need to read that. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. That also talks a lot about, or I mean, honestly, the civil rights movement was the greatest organizing machine ever.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to take pointers from that. Like we were great on our digital game. We had a lot of great digital organizing going on there. Like we had, I mean, it was such a small organization, raised $10 million in a month. You know, things like that. That's crazy.
I remember that.
Yeah.
That's crazy. But in terms of connecting with unions, like already structured, organized institutions, like unions, churches, like the things where people gather, we need to get in there and start talking about how we benefit, our policies will benefit you as a whole. We need to have kitchen table conversations way before 2024. Like we need to be doing it now, you know? So that I think that's really, really critical. And I also think, of course, that's my space of, that's my space of contribution to Humanity Forward. We're building chapters to prepare for that.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like that's what we're doing, and we need people to be aware that that's happening. I'm building the infrastructure so we can handle when I start advertising about it. You know, we're gonna start hitting everybody up in every state. Hey, do you know about your local chapter? Do you know about your state chapter? Are you talking to people do you know who lives near you who's part of Yang Gang? Like that kind of thing needs to happen. And if we're not doing that, we're not going to succeed in 2024 like we want to. We can't just have a good digital game. We've got to have a good ground game too. I mean, Biden, I'm still trying to understand how he won. I think
it was like he lost Iowa and New Hampshire, but like South Carolina and I think Nevada is when he picked up, right?
Yes, South Carolina is why he won. It's the only reason, in my opinion.
They had faith in him.
What's that? Yes, they were like, he's normal. I like what he says. Not too far, not too, and he worked with Obama. I trust that. It was just so. I said even before, like I knew about Andrew, before I knew like the whole lineup of all the Democrats when they started coming out that they were running for president. I was like, it's not going to be Kamala. It's not going to be Kamala. Sorry, her. It's not going to be her. Only reason why I was saying this is because I was like, America wants to go back to something they're familiar with. Obama was a stretch and they wanted to go back. That's how it felt to me.
Yeah, that's true. I remember Malcolm Gladwell has like this podcast called Revisionist History. And there was an episode about, I can't remember exactly what the name was, but it was like how, things have to kind of go back to like a normal, like apparently like Australia elected like their first female prime minister, like, I don't know, however many years ago. And like, like the outside looking is like, oh, this is great. This is so progressive. But like on the inside of Australia, there was like so much like, sexist critiques and like all this crap. And like, like it was, they were just really, really hard on her for like no reason. And like now I think they have like a white man now as their prime minister.
Let's ask our Australian friend. Is he still there?
Yeah, Chris.
I hope Chris is still there talking about Australia.
I
feel like they don't like he's not very like the prime minister of Australia is not very liked, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, it sounds like he's not pleased with the government for sure. But
repeat the question for him. You didn't get it.
So I heard that there was like Australia had like a female prime minister several years ago, and like, it was like, oh, this is great, this is progressive, awesome, like, like how other countries were, telling it, and then like in Australia apparently like it was very like sexist, and they're like more hard on her and just, you know, like that kind of stuff. And now Australia has like a white male prime minister, if I'm not mistaken, and he's not very liked.
Yeah,
Who do you have now?
Yeah. Who do you have now, Chris? Is it a white male now again?
Oh,
We got no R.
it's
Yay.
it was night. It was nocturnal hours.
Okay. Yeah, so like in Malcolm Gladwell's podcast Revisionist History, he was talking about how, like, you know, like things go progressive, then they need to kind of snap back in a way. Like, it was actually 3 white males after her. Oh, geez.
Was that long ago already?
Oh, I didn't know
feel
that.
like
Long ago.
I think they have more elections than we do, like a lot faster.
More frequently, yeah.
Yeah, more frequently, yeah.
But
Parliamentary systems can be interesting. Breaking the UK, I don't know what was going on there after Brexit, but they were just having prime ministers out the door. Same thing with Israel. Well, that was a different story. But yeah, these parliamentary systems, they can have forced elections. And I was like, what's going on?
That's wild. We don't understand that. We're on a cycle, and we can't break that cycle.
Yeah, you can't get off the
And now we have like a black female VP, you know.
I think the country, when Obama became president, it was like it definitely made people talk about things they didn't want to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Again, you know, I really think Trump was the yearning for something back to what we know. And then Biden is somewhat similar to that version. Like it's not too far. There's no socialism. There's not guillotining rich people. It's just normal politics. You know, I think that's what happened in South Carolina. It's normal politics. You know, my mom, she was all about, I knew he'd win, of course, you know, like, because they trust Biden. They just trusted Biden. Black folks came out to vote for Biden, older generations.
Yeah. So that's the interesting thing is apparently, and this is what Jermaine Johnson was telling us on one of the earlier McCoy streams way back in like he was saying that apparently Yang actually was well liked by some of the South Carolina establishment, like Jim Clyburn and some of them. But of course, like I remember Yang himself even said that he had sitting members of Congress as well as people in some of the early states who would come out and endorse him if he had a strong showing in the first few states. So it was like there were people who were almost in waiting, like, yeah, we like you, we just can't really say it because, you know, whatever politics fall in line with you. So it's like the kitchen table conversations, and there's so many other things that, yes, will kind of make it more normal and mainstream. So by the time the next election cycle comes around, it won't be such like a weird foreign thing to be like, oh yeah, I support Yang, of course. Did you not see that pandemic? Did you not see the fact that we needed to prepare and we weren't, and we need monetary support? We also need to like upgrade our infrastructure, upgrade our government, modernize the heck out of everything. Why are we still in the past? Then it'll just become a foregone conclusion that, yeah, I could support Yang. And Yang, his name out there, he was just on the Breakfast Club like last week or so. So I'm really glad to see that he's still getting his message out while doing the advocacy work.
And like they like him too on the Breakfast Club. Like they seem to like, yeah.
They do. Charlamagne is hard to please.
Yeah, he is.
He's hard to please. So I was like, okay, he did well there. And it is part of our mission statement to mainstream the ideas and vision of Andrew Yang.
Yeah.
Oh,
it is.
Chris,
I like when
what's that?
He said he had 2 interviews with the Breakfast Club since this pandemic started, and so many positive comments in the YouTube comment section. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Isn't that what he's famous for? Uniting a YouTube comment section?
Yeah, I was going to say that. It's true.
Yeah. And the one thing I was going to add to was like
Instagram too. He's like on Instagram comments. It's good too under like Charlamagne.
Yeah.
And I mean, look, when you think back when he went to the Breakfast Club the first time, and he was talking about he wanted to put cash in people's hands, and he wanted to kind of like focus of the city of New York and everybody else around. Charlamagne was like, "Oh, you really trying to do that?" He's like, "Yeah, we've already raised up like X amount of dollars, and we already helped like X amount of people." Charlamagne was like, "Well, I got 5 stacks. There you go, donate it." It was like, and people were like, "Wait, he did what?" Like, yeah, like
him and Envy, him and DJ Envy, I think both donated five.
Yeah, it was like it was just knowing that, okay, we got a real down to earth guy from New York, and the only thing he wants to do is put money in people's hands. Like, why not help him out to do that? Because now it's like we like the guy, we like him enough that we understand where he's coming from, and especially if we know people that the area he's serving, they need that help. Why not help them out? Why not help the man out to help somebody else out? Because in the long run, it's going to help everybody else out too. So it's like, yes, why not? And like you said, Erika, Charlamagne, yeah, he's a tough cookie to crack, but when you crack him,
he's there.
All that warm, lovey goodness comes oozing out. So yeah.
Yeah. And he literally was like, we need you, Yang. Like, you got good ideas. Don't forget about New York. So it was crazy that he really was like, because of course everyone's pushing like, oh, are you going to be a New York City mayor? And I know, Erika, you said that you don't have much insight into what Yang's plans are, but everyone keeps asking this. Charlamagne was like, seriously, Yang, like, don't forget about New York. We really could use help. And I'm like, dang, like, it's actually interesting to see that, yeah, I guess people do really see him as a guy who can like lead and really help solve these problems. So that's a very good place to be in.
He definitely has a lot of relational capital to spend. Like, he has so many people that he's the friendly Asian man who ran for president. I mean, they all love him. Nobody comes out and is like, I don't like Yang. Like, he does not instill that in people. He's likable. He has a high likability, and that is what's going for him above all the rest of these politicians. He doesn't come off fake.
Right.
He comes in, actually, to be honest with you, what you see on TV is exactly the same thing that you see in person. It's literally, he's the same. On the trail with him in Pennsylvania was, I mean, he's genuine. There's just no doubt about it. All that's whatever he's talking about in his stump speeches and things like that, they're his words. He comes up with all of that. There, other people, I don't know if that's the case with all politicians, but Andrew's just, I mean, his podcast, are you guys watching or listening or however?
Yeah,
I don't get to catch all of them. I try to, and then I was like, oh man, other people know more what my boss is saying than I do.
Wow.
So busy. We're so busy.
There you go.
But I try to listen to him in the mornings when I'm like getting ready for work or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's just, there's not too many people in the public eye that you feel you can trust.
Mm-hmm.
And he definitely has that on the left and the right. Like, when he goes on Fox News, people actually believe him. Mm-hmm. He hasn't done that since he's working with CNN, but it'll be interesting to see if he goes back to different stations, how that'll go.
Yeah. I hope he has. I hope he does one of those town halls, because I know Pete Buttigieg and as well as Bernie Sanders, that was big when he did the Fox town hall. They're all like raging, like, oh, why would you let this man on Fox? And then they were like cheering in the audience, and it was just like someone said like Bernie came into the foxhole and came out wearing a fox like fur coat or something.
Yeah, I saw those. It was good.
Yeah, and I mean, I enjoyed watching both Pete and Bernie on Fox, because it's just like you kind of need that crossover. And hopefully that can be like more normal of a thing, where it's like, I think he was the only person who had a positive approval rating from Republicans. And he had a high approval rating from Democrats because, yeah, you don't want to have low approval rating from Democrats and high from Republicans, but he had positive with both. And so I think if you can just tap into that and just keep coming across as that problem-solving guy, these issues are going to be hitting us regardless. And unfortunately, the polarization and the nationalization of these things, it's interesting because, Lord, if this man runs again in 2024, not Yang, but Trump, then it's like, and he's going to bring all his people with him. That's going to be an interesting showdown if that happens. But if Yang kind of can get in front of the country and get his message out there in a common sense way, I think that will help break through some of the culture of Trump 4 more years into the future. But anyways.
Yeah. So I think you're on point there. We'll see what happens. We'll see where he ends up.
Yeah.
Somebody asked about what are your thoughts on if he got a position in the cabinet? Like, what do you all think of that idea?
Well,
of him joining the cabinet for Biden for the commerce position.
It was interesting because the CNN article I saw that gave like the rumors of who was going to be floated, he was the only name under. I remember I saw it on the Reddit, on the Yang Reddit. He was the only name that was floated for a commerce secretary, at least on that article. Okay. So it makes it seem like, wait a second, like that's kind of big. People said it was commerce or labor. I think commerce probably was going to happen more because labor, there's a whole bunch of people they've been trying to get. People want Bernie to go there. Though Biden, I doubt that's ever happening. The point is, if Yang can get his hands on a position there, it would be interesting. I had to look up what exactly does the commerce secretary do. I mean, I understand what commerce is and business, but in terms of his ideas, how does it vibe be mainstream? Oh yeah, I heard that there was a live stream yesterday.
Yeah.
I watched
they were on.
I didn't get that.
No,
how was it? Yeah.
It was on Instagram.
Yeah.
How do you like it?
I liked it. Like it was just like a very just chill, long conversation. It was like 38 minutes or so.
Okay.
I was kind of hoping that Katie Couric was going to ask my question that I put on Twitter, because she was like, put in your comments below, but it doesn't really look like it.
What did you ask?
I asked because Yang mentioned on the Breakfast Club, in his most recent interview, about the Democrats overall marketing and messaging more so, and it was instead of just rebranding and something, we kind of lean into it more, and it's sort of we're forcing them to no, you gotta like this particular word or something like that. When he was talking about how he came up with the name the freedom dividend, he tried all these other things like opportunity dividend, prosperity dividend, American dividend, and Democrats, were liking all the names, but Republicans weren't. But Republicans really liked freedom dividend, conservatives. So you're just I don't really care what we name it, as long as people
like it.
I was yeah, because I don't think Democrats really care about the name Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act, but Republicans sure as hell did.
Because they thought it was an insult to call it Obamacare.
Right.
We're absolutely is. I was at least. Sorry.
No, you're good. I told you.
A little late.
I told you. But
yeah,
we're gonna slowly try to unwind and whatnot. But before we go, I do have an announcement to make. I do. So, Erika, you remember how you were talking about you guys, Humanity For needs to get state chapters going and whatnot? Mm-hmm. Well, Michigan may end up having one going. We just had our meeting tonight. And so between me and Kevin, we're going to be working on getting a Humanity For Michigan chapter going. Yes. Kevin Lee, yes. Yes.
Excellent. I love Kevin. He's such a wonderful, solid voice. I like him a lot.
Yes. So for anybody that's watching this, if you're in Michigan, let me know. and
get with Ronald.
So we can go ahead and get this thing going. I put all of our Twitter handles in the description box down below. So you guys are more than welcome to follow us. We'll follow back and everything else. But yes, we're going to get this Michigan chapter going for Humanity Forward. We're getting it. We're doing it. We are doing it. We are doing it.
I love it.
And so
that's dope. I'm excited.
Yes. So we already had it. We've settled it and whatnot. And yeah, we're going. All right. All right, let's see who's yes, that's the big news. So Erika, yes, we got you.
We got you for Michigan. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna take that. I'm taking that to tomorrow morning's meeting. We've got another state. So ready to go.
So we're going to work out a lot of the finer details. We're going to start reaching out to people in Michigan. So if you live in Michigan, follow my Twitter handle. We're going to be doing a bunch of announcements. Going to get together a bunch of people and figure out what can we do to get Michigan not only on the map as far as Humanity Forward goes, but also have those conversations of the freedom dividend and see what we can do to get it implemented in our cities and travel up to the state legislature and put on the ballot. Yes,
that's right. I love it.
We're doing.
That's what I'm talking about.
So
okay, this you ended on a really high note for me. Thank you.
Yeah. So
this was a joy. It's hard for me to say goodbye, so I don't even know how to do that. So
hold on, you gotta say something?
No, all I was gonna say was that Gray Black, my man's
my man. Yes. Sorry.
With like Massachusetts. So I met him through the Mass Yang Gang during the debates. Like I would go to debate watch parties. And then we connected more this year during the pandemic and with the racial justice stuff. So I found out that he was like the liaison between Humanity Forward and Humanity First movement. And I forgot to like let him know, like, yo, bro, we're gonna have Erika McLeod on tonight, but it's gonna be so exciting to go back to him and be like, yo, this is just great collaboration, like all these arms moving together, Humanity First, Humanity Forward, channels like ours, and just trying to like continue to do stuff.
Gray is like my right-hand man right now in terms of getting organized. He really is. He has a lot of connections across the country. So I lean on him a lot. So I'm glad that you're in connection with him. That's great. Perfect. This was fantastic. Thank you so much for having me on. I really enjoyed myself. Yeah. I was so worried because, I'm not really an early to bed person, but I am definitely my friends call me drunk puppy at night because I get really sleepy. So I'm wide awake right now. Yeah.
And Erika, you remember how I told you that sometimes we would go 2 hours?
Yeah. Hello.
Yeah.
We're past that. I didn't even realize. I'm like, how did we get here?
You're a champ for being here this whole time because our early streams, like these things barely lasted an hour. And when they did go an hour, it's like, oh man, we're pushing an hour 10, an hour 20. Now we're here on 2 hours on the regular, for better or for worse. So I'm so glad that you participated this whole 2 hour plus marathon.
Yeah.
Yes.
I didn't even realize the time flew. It went by really fast.
That's
right. That's right. You all are like tight.
Yes.
Good.
Oh, girl.
We
got this mind link.
Yeah, it's like it's just one mind.
Energy.
I love it. All right, people. I am gonna go to bed now.
All right. We gotta go to bed. Again, I got Twitter handles posted in the description box. Oh, Erika, I need to get with you so I can get that link so I can post that in the description box so you guys can have that. Again,
let me put that.
Forward is doing some big things. Get mobilized, organized, do what you guys have to do so we can make 2022, 2024 the year of Humanity Forward candidates running stuff from the nation capital, all the way to your state capital, all the way to your city. We're gonna get them in there, and we can't without this.
Don't forget about your.
We gonna have to come. We got to come out them pockets. I know we stretched a little bit, but come out them pockets. $1 a day will keep the doctor away. Well, $1 a day will keep somebody out of office and get somebody in office. So do what you can.
Do what you can. I know it's a tough time out there. Do what you can.
Do what you can. So we'll see you guys next week with a different topic. Until then, this is McCoy featuring Erika. We're out of here.